Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Today is Saturday before the Lent, and we actually started the Lent readings. We are in the beginning of this book that we're reading from, which is dedicated to Lent. Starts from Saturday and all the way to the Friday before Holy Week, for Palm Sunday. So this is it. We are in Lent, technically. And today the Lord is preparing us, today and tomorrow the readings is preparing us for Lent. 4 things we are going to read about tomorrow on Sunday. One of them is today. 4 things. Serving God to be a person, a godly person who belongs to God, really to belong to God according to Jesus. You do follow the commandment of God. 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your might. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your might. And the second one, love your neighbor as yourself. They're equally important. So there are 3 items in loving God. To love God with our hearts, love God with our mind, and to love God with our energy, with our might. The expression of that practically, because the Lord and the Gospel and the Bible is very practical, to get down to the business. There are 3 items that you exercise in loving God. There are 3 exercises to do. And the Lord tomorrow from the Gospel of St. Matthew would say, fast, pray, and give. Fast, pray, and give. I'm going to try, bear with me, I'm going to give you this very quickly because I have another subject that we want to cover. Might not be as didactic as this one. So the 3 items to fast, pray, and give, Jesus said to have to be in secret. Nobody should know about it. Why? Because it is a test. It's a test. You believe, you will do it, you don't care who sees it. You don't believe, you will do it to get the attention of somebody or to make sure that you are seen in a good light, that people are thinking good of you. And that's what Jesus said to avoid completely. And he ends up this talk by saying, if you do it, your house will be built on the rock. What does it mean? When the temptation comes, you don't break. People break when temptations come. Why? Because they had not done it for God. They didn't do it for God. They didn't believe he exists. They didn't believe what they were doing is going to get his attention. They didn't believe that he sees what we are doing in secret. When we don't believe that, when we get tempted harshly, I'm going to tell you for sure, we will fall. The 4th thing he added, he said, when you pray, start by forgiving. That's the 4th one. But it's a help to the 3. So we're going into Lent. We expect that each of us will prepare themselves for fasting, praying, and giving. Fasting, praying, and giving in secret. And before you start doing any of it, forgive. He said, if you don't forgive, none of it will be acceptable. None of it. Prayer will not be acceptable. Jesus actually, in talking about prayer, he said, he gave them our Father, and he said, if you don't forgive, you're not going to be forgiven. So this is what the beginning of Lent is about, to prepare us for the work of Lent, to prepare us for the love of God on a very deeper and actually intimate and secret level, not the open activity and the big work that everybody sees. Today we want to talk about Pope Kyrillos. Why we want to talk about Pope Kyrillos? Because his feast of departure was in 3 days. March 9. Good. So Tuesday will be the liturgy. We have a liturgy for Pope Kyrillos, commemoration of Pope Kyrillos. And it's very important for us to remember him more than anybody else. Today is one of my favorites. There's actually today Saint Perpetua, and I love this saint a lot. She's a female young mother who was thrown to the beasts, and a story of her is very, very moving. If you want to read a story that would move you to love God and to understand what it means to be a Christian, read the story of St. Perpetua. But I prefer to remember St. Pope Kyrillos because he is our father. So Pope Kyrillos, to those of us, I was a child. I was maybe 12 years old when he passed, when he departed. And in his times, we heard about the miracles that he used to do. I remember when I was a child, heard about his clairvoyance, the way he can see through people and read their mind. I've heard a lot about this when I was a child, but I also heard about his miracles of casting out demons and healing the sick. It was very incredible. Incredible. So where he was born in Damanhur, and his parents were very godly people. They bring him to church every Sunday, and he grew up loving the church and especially loving prayer and solitude. And he was a clerk in one company, and they loved him very much in his work. When he grew up, the owner of the company, wanted to make him like a manager, and he refused. He said to him, I'm going to the monastery. I'm not going to be here. They used to be visited, his family used to be visited by a monk, a priest from the monastery of Baramos, Abuna Tadros al-Baramosi, who Pope Kyrillos used to spend a lot of time with him when he came to visit them. And Abuna Tadros had made a prophecy, and I don't know how serious it was, but he told him, this one belongs to us. He talked about Pope Kyrillos as belonging to the monks, whenever he came to visit them. So when he grew up, he decided to go to the monastery, and he went to their Baramos, which is the last one in a chain of monasteries by the middle area in the desert between Alexandria and Cairo. He went there, and they say that he was not very much social. He was very withdrawn and always in prayer. And he begged to go on a solitude, to be by himself in a cave. And the monks said, it's dangerous, and people do this when they are seasoned. They spend maybe 10, 15 years in the monastery, and then we give them the leave to be on their own, because you can go crazy when you stay alone for all your life. But he insisted, and his father of confession, his guide, actually witnessed that he can actually do it. So he went and stayed in this cave. I think that cave you have here. I don't remember if it was done before or he actually did it. So they go in this rock, and in the face of the rock they keep carving in that sandstone. They keep carving a hole until it gets deeper enough for them to stay in it. Today the monastery put a door on it so people don't vandalize it. So he stayed there for many years. And then at one point or another, there was a story that you will not find in the Synaxarium, of monks who had been treated ill in the monastery, and they were excommunicated from the community, not from the church. They were expelled from the monastery. And some of them were older, and he, standing with them, left the monastery and went to Cairo with them. And there he was teaching in the seminary in Cairo for the priests and monks. At the time, monks and priests used to go to seminary to study before they became priests or monks. So he taught there for a while. And then eventually he went and asked from the Ministry of Antiquity to rent a mill, a building of a mill on the mountain of Mu'attam. And this mill was abandoned, just a big building, rounded building, which like almost half of it is broken. And he fixed it for himself to be a cell and stayed there for a long time. In those days, he was ordained a priest, and in those days he started to pray a liturgy every day. Pope Kyrillos was a priest and then a bishop and a patriarch between 36 and 72. 1936 and 1972. How many years is that? 36 years praying a liturgy every day when he had his power and health. And so if you multiply that by 365, what would you get? 36 times 365, what would that be? More than 12,000 liturgies in his life. 12,000 liturgies, at least. And one of the record breakers, and if you want to keep it, he never cared about the numbers, but that's what he used to do. Every morning, every night, he would pray tasbihah by himself. And then when the morning comes, he used to have a man, a very simple man, come to him to the mill, and the man would be the deacon, because according to the law of the church, a priest cannot pray a liturgy by himself. He has to have a person at least with him. Jesus said, if 2 or 3 is gathered in my name, I'll be in their midst. So the church takes it very seriously that the Abuna alone cannot pray a liturgy. It has to be another person, at least one more. So this one comes to him, and he was a very simple man. Some have some mental issues, and they used to abuse him. Abuna Mina, which was Abuna Mina before he became Pope Carlos. And Abuna Mina used to bear with him patiently. One of his disciples used to say that the man would be like stopping the liturgy in the middle and says, Abuna, you interrupted my response. And Abuna patiently would say, sorry, Habibi, I'm asif, I'm sorry. And he would continue the liturgy. And every day he would do this. I remember, I think also one day, thieves came and they beat him up thinking that he has something hidden in the mill. And he walked all the way to Al-Mabarra, the hospital, with his head bleeding, and got into the emergency room. He lost consciousness for a little bit, and then he woke up and he walked himself all the way to the hospital. This is how much he loved God and how much he loved prayer, and he was serious about it. Then the Pope wanted him to be a bishop, so he ran, as classically noted. He ran from that. He didn't want to be a bishop. So he went and lived. He went and lived in the monastery of Saint Shenouda in Sohag, in Upper Egypt, for a while. When the thing calmed down, he came back, and then he started building the church of Saint Mina. He loved Saint Mina. That was his patron saint, always. So he went back and lived and built the church of Saint Mina in Masr al-Adima, in Old Cairo. And there he had lots of disciples. Many students came to get his counsel and his guidance, and many of them later became bishops and priests. He was very closely connected to many of them. I do know that Pope Shenouda, God rest his soul, used to take his guidance too when he was in Saint Mina. And those days started to show miracles. Miracles started to happen. Then the time came for him to be elected as the patriarch after the departure of Pope Ioannis. He elected him, and then he became the patriarch of Alexandria. He continued his life, simple life. Many days he will do liturgies, maybe even outside the fast. Maybe at like 5 p.m. he would start praying the liturgy. And then not a single night he didn't attend the tasbihah, the praises. And if he didn't, and at the end of his life he was sick and he couldn't go to the church, somebody fixed a speaker in his cell, and he would be listening to tasbihah from his own cell at night. One of the stories that was stuck with me is Abuna Yusuf Asad. One day he was exorcising a demon from a girl, and the demon didn't want to come out. And Abuna was frustrated, so he said, okay, take her to Baba Carlos. So they took the girl to Pope Carlos. He was in the church. It was during Tasbihah. He was in his seat like this. And Abuna Rafai says, they just brought the girl into the church and the demon started to scream, and the Sayyidina was asleep. So he had such power, and spiritually he was very powerful. So the demon was exorcised with Sayyidina asleep, and the girl was okay. So he was a very, very spiritual man. And many times, I have a friend who's They used to go and ask him for solutions and guidance. I have a friend whose mother was, this is one I know personally. His mother told me this, and I visited him when I was in medical school. So she said, I had a sister, my friend's aunt, who was in a situation where a young man comes to ask her for marriage. They were very hesitant. They didn't know what to say to the man. The man was not really, has no good character. She was getting older, and they were just stuck. So they went, and my friend's mother said, I used to work in a company. We worked on Saturday. There was a company that didn't have time off on Saturday, and I needed to go and ask Pope Kyrillos for guidance. So she went and stood in line. She snuck out of her work, didn't ask for leaving or take a day off or any of it. She just snuck out of her work and went to see Pope Kyrillos and ask him. She was standing in line, and he was sitting in his seat, and people are coming one by one to ask him his opinion and praying and all that stuff. So he said, all of a sudden stood up and went down the line, walked up to her and said, does it have to be on a working day? He left. So this, how much he knew about things. Then later he was the first pope to ordain a patriarch for the Ethiopian church. Before, Ethiopian church had followed the patriarch of Egypt all the time. They didn't have a patriarch for their own, and he ordained the first one. In his time, he put the foundation stone for the big cathedral in Egypt, and the day of putting the foundation stone, Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia, came, who was, he loved him very much, he was a very close friend. Haile Selassie came, and Abdel Nasser was there, and there is a picture of them going up the stairs of the cathedral, holding hands. Pope Kyrillos in the middle, Abdel Nasser on one side, and Haile Selassie on the other side. He built the monastery of St. Mina, and he brought his relics. In his time also, the relics of St. Mark came from Venice, and he put it in the new cathedral, and this was one of the big celebrations. Also, Pope Kyrillos made the Myroon for the first time after a long time, and in his time, actually, one of the most impressive things that happened in his time that shows that he is a great man is the appearance of St. Mary in Zaytun. This was a very big event, a national event. This is the first time, and I don't think there's anything happened like that after, that St. Mary apparition will be clear to millions. Usually in the Catholic Church, when St. Mary appeared to one or two people or three, like in Fatima. But in this case, every single human being who was available saw her, including Muslims and people. Washington Post, New York Times has pictures in their archives of the apparition of St. Mary. They took photos of the apparition, and this is one of them. So this happened in his time too. And so Pope Kyrillos, at the end of his life, when he felt sick a little bit, and when they were doing surgery, sometimes they did a surgery on him, and they said, I heard this from one who witnessed it, when he was under anesthesia, he would say psalms. He would pray psalms. This only happened when somebody is very soaked into prayer. When you get unconscious and start dreaming, you're dreaming your prayers. That's very deep. And then he fell ill for a little bit, and then before he died, he said, the Lord will take care of you, and departed. And he was canonized a saint, officiated by the church a few years ago, to be Saint Pope Kyrillos VI. We ask his intercession. He has helped a lot of people, and I would tell you something, especially in the Middle East, in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. He is very famous, very, very famous, and people know him, and they love him dearly, more than even us. We ask his intercession, and to the Lord is the glory with his good Father and Holy Spirit now and forever. Amen.